we protect our athletes. That's what's happened. That's what we learned from 2000 is not just physically, but mentally, you have to protect your athletes. You have to let them know that we care. You have to not let them know, but let them feel it. Let them understand it. Let them breathe it. It's there. It's not just a pat on the back. You know what I mean? It has to be sincere.
Hey gymnasts, Elite Sports Band is a cutting-edge compression back warmer that can protect your most valued asset, your back. I'm Allison Taylor on behalf of Elite Sports Band. Visit EliteSportsBand.com. We've got your back.
This is episode 63 for December 5th, 2013. I'm Jessica from Masters Gymnastics, and this is the #1 gymnastics podcast ever in the history of humankind, bringing you the most fascinating people on the gymternet. This weekend, the Glasgow World Cup starts. It looks like you're going to be able to watch the whole thing live online. They had podium training up live today, which is super exciting. We hope everybody gets there despite these crazy 100-mile-an-hour winds they're having. Some people were stuck, like in Germany and Italy, so I'm hoping everybody gets there because this is the best meet. You know how we love this meet because they do really innovative stuff, the way they put the meet on. So check British Gymnastics for details. And remember that after you watch that meet, so Saturday that meet's happening, but Friday, Maroney is going to be on Bones, which is on Fox, so make sure to watch her on that show. And then Saturday, you have to wake up and draft your fantasy gymnastics team. Make sure you're doing that. I'm already stressing out about it. My hands are sweating just thinking about it. It's very serious. This is my first year. Also, make sure to check out our fabulous gift guide, which I put together myself, and I keep adding things to it because I can't help myself because I want everything on there, and I keep finding more awesome stuff. Like this week, I found these Leos. They're actually swimsuits, but you could wear them as Leos, and they have comic book pages on them. They're so cool. Anyway, I've added a couple more things, so check that out. And speaking of our Gym Nerd gift guide, in the gift guide, there is a purple, foldable, portable 4-incher. Yes, that's right. I said it's purple, which is my favorite color. How freaking cool is that? I want everything purple. I wish they had this when I was a kid because me and my friend T used to run from our back patio through the dining room and then on into the living room, and then we would flip off of this little round jogging trampoline that they had in the 80s, and then we'd land on couch cushions and a futon, which is super safe. I have no idea how we didn't sprain our ankles every time. But if we had had this amazing junior practice mat, we would have been much, much safer. Plus, both the futon and the couch cushions would have lasted longer. Sorry, Dad. The junior practice mat comes in blue and purple, but obviously purple is better. Everybody knows that. Right now, Tumble Track has free shipping on select items, and it's 10% off through the end of December. So you should probably check out this awesome junior practice mat at tumbletrack.com. That's TUMBLTRAK.com. Our interview today with Dr. Larry Nassar, ATC, is brought to you by Tumble Track. Dr. Larry Nassar has the best credentials ever for a gymnastics doctor because he is a certified athletic trainer, which is like a combo of trainers are like a combo of a paramedic and a physical therapist, but they're specifically trained to work with athletes only, not like some physical therapists that'll say oh yeah, I work with athletes. No. Athletic trainers, that's all they're trained to work with. It's very, very, very specialized. So anyway, I'm totally biased, and you'll find out why in a second. He's also an osteopathic doctor. So osteopaths are physicians, just like an MD, but osteopaths are trained to treat kind of in a holistic way, to look at the whole person and focus on prevention. They also use manipulative therapy, which sounds really kind of weird, but it basically means they use their hands to diagnose an illness or an injury. I don't know. I have a doctor who's an osteopath, and there's a huge, huge difference. And, MDs are great too. I use them both for different things, but I have a special place in my heart for osteopaths, and I'll tell you why right now. Because I'm just going to tell you that I'm totally biased. in this interview, completely and totally biased because I just love Larry Nassar, and my undergraduate degree was in athletic training, and long ago during my internship years, I worked with Dr. Nassar at Level 10 Nationals, and he's totally amazing. He completely blew me away. He looks like Inspector Gadget when he's working because he's doing a million things at once, but he's super kind and accommodating to everyone, including the coaches who would come up and needed treatment. And he was, working the meet and teaching me at the same time. I mean, he was just amazing. So, I'm totally biased. I think he's awesome, and that's from personal experience. He has been the U.S. national team physician since 1996. He is also an associate professor at Michigan State University's medical school, and he's the team doctor for the gymnastics team. So, no big deal. I don't know when he sleeps, honestly, but he's great. I'm going to stop going on and on about how awesome he is because we're about to bring you the interview. So, for all of you wannabe doctors out there and wannabe athletic trainers, I'm telling you right now, go to Michigan State. Get into the athletic training program. You will get the most amazing education in the entire world. I also want to mention, for those of you who aren't familiar with the horror story that was the 2000 selection process for USA Gymnastics. We've talked about it a couple times, but just to tell you the timeline here that he's going to refer to. So Vanessa Atler, she was hailed as like the second coming of Nadia. She fell apart at Olympic trials and failed to make the team. And then team member Morgan White couldn't perform due to a foot injury, and so Tasha Schweikert was named as her replacement. And that meant that the first alternate, Alyssa Beckerman, was passed over. And allegedly, this all happened right before a team practice. They were just told, like, oh, Alyssa, you're off the team. Tasha, you're in. Okay, now run. So that's kind of what went down. So now you know kind of what he's talking about, and we'll start the interview. The fans used to call, of course, the ranch, they would call the camps death camps because everyone would get hurt every time they went there, and the fans were, like, outraged. And I think it definitely has changed over the years. You can see the difference between those years that you're talking about when everything was in flux to now. I think there's way less injuries. I mean, I'm sure you have the data to back it up, but from...
Well, the issue is this intimidation and... intimidation. I think it's the best word. Okay, so if you're adapting to a new situation, okay, and what we've done in the United States is very much worked hard at bringing coaches from all over to be able to train at the ranch and learn how to keep the gymnasts in their club and not have to have their star gymnasts leave to go to one of 3 or 4 clubs like the way it was in the past. If you didn't go to X, Y, or Z club, then your kid wasn't going to compete at an international assignment. Okay?
Yep.
So the training camps in the past, way back, was basically a selection for these few clubs to pick the kids to come to their team because their coaches were not even allowed at the training camp. So only the kids would be allowed to go. And so the kids though would say, okay, I know if I go to these training camps, if I stay with this coach, I ain't going to no international competition. But if I switch gyms and go, and so we through TOPS, through the Talent Opportunity Program, which was designed originally with Bill Sands and Gary Warren, morphed it and turned it into what it is as of today. That has allowed us to have allowed us to have someone like Simone Biles. Someone like Sean Johnson, to that coaches who have never coached their elite kid before are able to take this kid and take them to the World Championships and the Olympics. Okay? And it gives us such a huge variety of different clubs that are now associated with the national team, which is awesome.
Totally.
Okay, so now you're a newcomer, though. You show up on the scene, and you're like, ooh, I've got to prove myself. The problem is intimidation by the coach and intimidation by the athlete because they feel like they got to prove themselves. So they show up at the ranch, and they do things that they wouldn't normally do at home because they're trying to prove themselves. Okay? So it's the intimidation of the coach to say, look, what my athlete can do to push their own gymnast, and it's intimidation of the gymnast to say, look what I can do, and so then they get hurt. It's new equipment, it's new, the field equipment, the type of equipment can be equipment that they've never worked on before, yet they're going to try to improve themselves. Therefore, injuries is increased, okay? But at the same time, over the time that they start coming more and more, then they realize don't get intimidated. You don't want your athlete to get hurt. Do what your athlete's capable of doing and not more, and show consistency, and that's how you make it. Okay, so there's a learning curve, just like there is for anything else, because people try and come in and say, look at me, you know what I mean? Look what I can do. I'm running with the big horses now, right? Okay, but what they realize is, you keep doing that, and you're going to be sitting on the sidelines. So you need to come in, do what you normally do in your own situation, so you're in your comfort zone, and don't get out of your comfort zone. You know, so does that make sense?
Yeah. That totally makes sense. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I feel like it did, you know, the selection camps and camps used to be way farther apart, and now they're every month. And I think...
Well, yeah, what happened before was we would go to the ranch only maybe once a year, because that was because of the old system. You know, the old system changed between 1999 and 2000 when Bella came in, and then we started to have them once a month, or about 10 times a year. And then we would go to the ranch starting in that 1990-2000, you know, monthly as we switched over. And that's when, you know, life started to change. Bella primed the pump. We really had a hard time to prime the pump between 1999 and 2000. And those kids that were there, we owe everything to. I mean, those that 1999 to 2000 team, if it wasn't for them, it's their blood, sweat, and tears that the rest of these gymnasts who have no earthly clue what these kids went through before. Those kids mentally and physically, it was such a drastic change, not just for them, but for their coaches to understand and adapt to this new system. And then Marta was the savior of that system. And Bella stepped aside, and Marta got a chance to fly. And it was amazing. And as she, over the years, was able to stand up and actually make things happen, we've had more success with Marta as the manager than what the team has ever even imagined they'd be able to have prior to that. And it's because of the way Marta's able to work. And not everyone likes Marta. Not everyone needs to. You know what I mean? That doesn't matter. It's the fact of the system. It's indisputable. The fact that she's been able to make it work. And you may like that or not, but she's been able to make it work. And over the years, she has changed. She's not the same person that she was 10 years ago. She's not the same person that she was 20 years ago. And that's normal. Many people, when you're at the age that she's at, aren't the same as what they were 10 or 20 years ago. You learn from your experiences, and you adapt, and that's what's made Marta even better, is that she's learned and adapted from the past and been able to assume into this role of not being my gymnast, but other people's gymnast. You know, so over the years, we've gone from one time to twice, 1 to 2 times a year there, to now 10 times, to now USAG has close to 60 around there. Like every single week, there is an event at that ranch between not men's gymnastics, there's a discipline that's not there, but women's gymnastics, women's artistic, rhythmic gymnastics, and trampoline and tumbling and acro. Between those disciplines, we're there every single week of the year and more so, which is, amazing to think. And that all happened between 2008 and 12. So up until about 2008, we were maybe at 20 different events there or so. But legit between 2008 and where we are now, it went up to over 50, close to 60. I think we're probably at 60 now, events a year there. So that's a lot of change.
And, you're talking about the team from the 2000, leading up to the 2000 Olympics and all they went through. And I know you said in the past what a special place in your heart they'll always hold because of how difficult.
100%.
Yeah. And what was it like for you being there on the sideline? I mean, I feel like that's one of the hardest things about your job is seeing everything that's going on, and there's only so much you can do. And that was such a difficult period. What was it like for you?
Well, it was hell. I mean, back then, it was the same as what the coaches and the athletes were going through is what Debbie and I had to go through. We had to adjust, we had to adapt, and we had to teach, we had to educate, we had to adapt and teach the coaches and administration too about legalities. In addition, it's like, okay, the bottom line is, okay, you guys will be selecting athletes no longer the athlete that scores the highest is going to the event. You're selecting, you're picking. And now you want to know their injuries, and you want to know every detail about their injuries, and you want me to tell you the details of those injuries so that it'll weigh into the way that you select those athletes. And you still expect the coaches and the athletes to come knowingly to tell me this, and then for me to share that information with you. I said, that ain't going to happen. They're going to hide. They're going to deceive. They're going to do whatever they can do to try and avoid having to show or display any type of injury, because that may displace them from the selection. So you're setting this up to try and hide and deceive. I said, can't have that. There's a thing called HIPAA, that we need legal forms that if they want to come, they have to sign, and legally they have to, allow us to know this information and know that it will not be held against them if they still can do the work that they need to be able to do. In other words, we want them to be safe. We don't want them to hide injuries, meaning that they're working beyond what they're capable of doing and then making a small injury worse because they're trying to hide it instead of resting it. If they trust us, then they can not have to hide the injury. We can say, do less numbers, and we want you in 3-4 months to be here. You don't need to be here right now. So it was a culture that we had to try and it was hard. I mean, it was exceedingly hard to get the coaches, the athletes, and the administration to listen that this is how we have to gain their trust. You, administration, cannot use the injury against them. You, athletes, have to be able to trust me and coaches that you're going to be able to talk to your coaches and tell what the injury is. Coaches, you have to be able to talk to your athletes, and coaches and athletes, you guys have to be able to trust that the administration are not going to use the information against you. You know what I mean? And that was exceedingly hard. And that's why we had a lot of injuries back then, too, because no one wanted to come forth and say. And so now, as we've worked through that, and they all signed HIPAA forms, that was huge. I mean, people were irate about having to sign this stuff, at first. But now legally, I can share the information, with the administration, because I'm not going to do anything that's not legal, first of all. And then, and now Marta, the vast majority of the time, and people do not understand this, the vast majority of the time, after I share the information with Marta is the one who tries to help get the coaches to decrease. She's the one that they have that injury. Larry, make sure that coach is not pushing that kid in their personal gym back home. You know what I mean? So not just when they're showing up here at the ranch, but help, I'll get phone calls from her. Larry, so-and-so still doing too much. Get on the phone, talk to them. I'll call Marta and say, Marta, yeah. People don't understand that. And even today, a lot of the coaches will say, no way. And it's like, well, I'm talking to her on the phone. Her and I have worked so much together that she definitely wants me to stay through to 2016 because we have a working relationship that of trust. And we know when is it time to back off and when it's time that you don't have time anymore to back off, okay? But when the coaches are trying to push against a show, when it's time that they should be backing off, they end up in trouble. And Marta doesn't want that. It's like, no, get them out, stop. You know what I mean? It's amazing. So, and the only time that it comes to push is when we're at the Worlds or the Olympics, we're at the international event, okay? Well, can we get them through? That's the big thing then. It's like, okay, we have an injury. We're here. You're on the team. We're either going to be able to use you or we're going to replace you because you safely can't do it. That's the only time that there's a push.
Right.
Before that, it's like, all right, this is the time to get healthy so that when we get to the international competition, you're not hurt. And Marta spends more time telling the coaches to back off and saying the reason why that kid is still hurt is because the coach is pushing too much. You've got to get that coach to back off. Okay? So, and that I think will surprise a lot of people, but that's the honest to God's truth. And that's why I have that relationship with Martha that works, because she's not some evil person trying to make people do beyond what they're normally capable of doing. You know, and that's the hardest thing for a coach. That's the hardest thing for anyone in the coaching field is every single day that gymnast walks into their gym, it's the coach's job to try and get them to do things that they don't think they can do. That's the nature of coaching. The nature of coaching is you can't do that double back. It's my job to get you to do that double back by skills and by mentally believing that you can do it. And that's tough. That's a tough job. I can't do that job. I give coaches huge credit for being able to take someone day in and day out and try and get them to do things that they need help being able to get pushed to do. You know, that's tough. Tough job.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. People are going to lose their minds when they hear this. They're going to be so happy to hear this. It's going to make people just, I just think that's just one of the reasons we've always wanted to talk to you, because I feel like you see everything and you have the perspective. Like, your whole job is keeping people as healthy as they can to achieve their dreams, really. I mean, athletic training and sports medicine, you know, when I first wanted to go into it, I was like, yeah, you make people healthy, it's about health. And I was like, and then when I started doing it, I was like, oh, really? It's about, how can I get someone to achieve their dream without further injury or killing themselves? Because you're going to have injuries when you're at this level. It's just a fact, it's a fact. So, and so I feel like, but when you come from that, you're the impartial person whose entire job is health and safety and making sure people can kind of treat their, so I feel like it's so good to hear this from you.
Well, the injury aspect of it, the vast, most important, by far, aspect of injury that you need to protect the athlete from is the mental injury. The physical injury, they almost always can recover from. It's the mental injury that leaves the scars that keep coming back and haunt them later. And that's the job that we have to, as a team, work with. And that's what happened to the 99-2000 team, is so many of them have mental injury of what they went through that is so difficult. It's so overbearing. It's just overwhelming. And we've never forgotten that. And we've learned, from that. We had to, otherwise the system would have failed. And I always explain to the gymnasts, the new gymnasts, when I get a chance, when I'm there, and I've made videos of this and pictures, is you walk from the old gym, you go into the new gym. As you walk from the old gym, it's usually dark when you walk in. You turn on one bank of lights. And then you go through this double door, and you sort of open this door, and the light from the new gym appears. And you walk up these steps. And as you walk up these steps on the left-hand side now, it used to be on the left and right, but now just on the left-hand side, are these huge, like 2 feet by 1.5 foot. I mean, they're huge posters, maybe 3 feet by 2.5, whatever. They're huge posters of the 2000 team. And then you're into the new gym. You always have to walk by the 2000 team. And there's a picture of the entire 2000 team right over that door, right over the mantle of that door. So that door leading in, you have to pass by the 2000 team. And then you go in, and the largest pictures are going to be like 8 by 12s of any other gymnast that's happened since then. So, the hugest pictures are of that 2000 team because, again, it was them that paved the way for everyone else. And so you pay homage to them. Never forget them. Never forget what they went through. Never forget that they were the ones that are allowing us to be as successful as what we are now, because we learned. And that's the key thing, is we learned. And then Morgan White was just the amazing one, because poor Morgan had a foot injury. And it was in that time when no one wanted to talk about injury, and, she wasn't able to compete. I mean, get there, and we had to replace her. So all at the Olympics, you've got Mary Lee Tracy with 2 kids, Alyssa Beckerman and Morgan White. So she's the appointed head coach, for the team. Bella's the team, the team manager or whatever. Yeah, but she's the appointed coach because she's got 2 kids on the team. Neither of her kids are able to compete. We bring in Tasha Schweikert as a replacement athlete. And at that moment, Mary Lee Tracy with Morgan, with Alyssa, had to leave. They had to leave. I mean, it's that harsh. What the Olympic Committee does for gymnastics, and I think it's only gymnastics, we've fought this, is that if our athlete is replaced at the Olympic Games, their name is erased out of the Olympic books. They don't exist. You cannot find anywhere in any USOC, anywhere in the United States Olympic Committee, Morgan White was a part of the 2000 Olympic team. She made the team. Just like some of the kids from the 1984 team, Lucy. It's like, she tears her ACL, and she doesn't exist. She doesn't exist. According to the United States, they have to turn in all of their warm-ups, all of their shirts, all of their everything that the USOC gave them. All of their equipment gets turned in. They don't get a ring. They don't get a picture. They don't get nothing. Okay? And the replacement gets everything. It's so wrong. If you're a wrestler and you don't make weight, you're a pound over, and you never get to do anything at the Olympics because you are fat, because you are 1 pound over, you're still an Olympian. You still get all that stuff. If you're a gymnast and 48 hours before, the first day of competition, when lineup has to be turned in, and you get hurt, and you've been training that whole time, and you get hurt, and you have to get replaced, you are marched out of the Olympic Village, and you lose all of your, you have to turn in everything. Is that right?
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It's wrong. And Kathy Kelly fought this and fought this and fought this, and USOC has refused to change it. So, after the 2000s, after all the nightmare that happened to poor Morgan, Alyssa Beckerman, we have not replaced a single athlete at the Olympic Games. Doesn't happen. Refuse to happen. I have done whatever I can to keep the team as the team through any injury that they've had. And it's worked so far. We've done well with it. It's been very difficult. I'll tell you that much, It hasn't been easy because some of the injuries have been pretty significant. But we've made it through safely. And that's the hardest thing. That is the hardest thing is because okay, they're fine, they get hurt. Do we replace them or not? We got to look at scores. How can we still do? What's the team going to function like? It's not just about that individual, but how's that going to affect the team? And since 3-up, 3 counts, if one of those injuries happens to occur during the 3-up, 3 counts, and we get a 5 or we get a 0 on that specific routine for 3-up, 3 counts, we go from gold medal to no medal. If you think there's a little bit of stress,
right,
try saying, yes, that person can go with that injury and be safe. That's tough. But we haven't. We've done it since 2000. It's not easy, but we've made it through.
So now, of course, I'm immediately thinking of Alicia Sacramone in Japan at Worlds and how that was sort of an unprecedented situation where I think Kathy Kelly was like, I'm keeping her on the team. And it wasn't the Olympic situation where you're talking about, but, she was kept on the team because it seemed like the sacrifice that she had made and been injured right beforehand. And then everyone got medals, including the alternates, And
we have control over that because that's Worlds. We have control over that. At Olympics, the USOC, it's completely, we have no control. That's the difference because we protect our athletes. That's what's happened. That's what we learned from 2000 is not just physically, but mentally, you have to protect your athletes. You have to let them know that we care. You have to not let them know, but let them feel it. Let them understand it. Let them breathe it. It's there. It's not just a pat on the back. You know what I mean? It has to be sincere that we care.
And I want to ask about the mental injuries, but before we go to that, I'm wondering now about Morgan White and going into the Olympics and how you were talking about people were in this situation where they, basically, if they wanted their athlete to make the team, they were forced to basically hide their injury because of the way the team selection was. What did that happen with Morgan White? Did she, what kind of made her finally reveal her injury, or was it something that was known, or did she get hurt there?
It was an injury that we knew that was known. There was a lot going on, with it, and a lot of it's old stuff that's hard to bring back up. But where I was not allowed to participate much because of what I was trying to do anyway. So when I was allowed to finally show back up to the selection camp, as we're getting ready to go to Australia, it was already too late. I knew her foot was injured. They knew it was injured, but they were letting her do too much in the gym because they were trying to push, And so it was just that. It was like, okay, you've done too much already. You know what I mean? It's like you had your chance to rest it, but because there was a pressure to move forward, it wasn't anyone's fault. It was totally, like you said, the environment of the time that created a situation in which the time when Morgan could have rested her foot and given her more time to recover before she needed to push on it was unfortunately wasted, and she did too much to the point that now we didn't have enough time to rest it to make it good enough. And when we got over to Australia and it came to a point when it was time to try and test it, she couldn't do it. So yeah, it was the culture of the time. And, it is what it is. I mean, my very first day I came from the airport to that ranch, they had already been training. I found Mary Lee, found Morgan. It was in between the first and second practice, and we were late because I had to sit down and talk with Morgan and Mary Lee. The rest of the team was in the gym training, and then late, like you never are late, comes, Morgan and Larry and Mary Lee, and it's like, let's have a conversation, dudes. This is the situation that we're in. Here's reality. Okay. And that's hard, but you have to make reality checks. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate. But, and then we would say, okay, this is where we're at now. How do we get from point A to point B? Can't go backwards, but now how do we move forward? And we tried our best. And, it unfortunately wasn't enough for Morgan, so that was rough.
Oh. And if you don't want to talk about this, because I can't even imagine how hard, I'm tearing up just listening to you talk about this, so I can't even imagine how it is for you right now. And I don't want to bring up the past over and over, but, so if you don't want to answer this, absolutely, I understand and we can move on. But it sounds like you weren't allowed at the camp because of or at a certain time, they didn't want you there because there was a disagreement about the injury and the agreements and HIPAA and all of that stuff. Is that what happened?
That was part of it. There was more. It was to do with a whole lot of trust issues that took time to develop. You know what I mean? It took time to develop, and it was tough. There was some issues that happened that it's hard because I don't want to bring up an individual. It had to do with an individual gymnast who, it was tough. It was an individual gymnast that created a situation that placed myself and a couple other key people. It was in that transition when Bella was no longer going to coach an individual athlete, and Bella was transitioning to being the new camp manager or director of team, I should say, not camp manager, but team manager. Okay, one of our national team members contacted me and said, I want to leave my coach. This is like, we're 12 months away from the Olympics, okay? Not even that. I want to leave my coach and go and have Bella become my coach. And so they called, the mom called, the kid called, because a lot of the kids will trust me and we talk, And so I explained to them, number one, I don't think there's the new rules and stuff. So I don't think you can leave your gym and go train with Bella because he's not allowed to have a personal athlete in this new role. So number two, it's not really good to leave your coach this soon before the Olympics. You want to try and stay where you're at. You got your best chance to stay where you're at. Number three, I think your coach is excellent. I'd stay with that coach. They got a lot to offer you, and to move forward. Number four, if you leave, if you're worried that you're training too hard with your coach now, I said it'll just be you, Marta, and Bella out at the ranch. They have no gym. You'll just be out there at ranch full time. And back then, it was archaic, back then. Not the way it is now. Now it's beautiful compared to what it was. Anyway, the living conditions and stuff back then were really rugged. And I said you'd have no teammates. It would just be you. And I said, and the reason why Marta and Bella are as good as what they are is because they work hard. They work harder than any other coaches. You're going to work hard if you go there, And so you got to understand that. You will train harder and you will train by yourself if you try and do that. You're better off staying where you are. And so, anyways, this individual then writes a letter because she had asked Bella to come. She'd asked Bob Colarossi to come to that gym. She really wanted to have Bella coach her. And so when she found out she couldn't do that because the rules were Bella couldn't train this individual athlete because he had to train the whole team, she writes this letter back to USA Gymnastics and says that Bob Colarossi lied to her, that Bella Caroli misled her and lied to her, and that Larry Nassar said that, to try to deter me from going to be with Bella because Bella was abusive. That's what she wrote in the letter, that Larry Nassar said that Bella would be abusive to me and try to stop me from going to him. And Bella got a copy of the letter, and Bella said openly that what was written in there about him was false, that he had said that she wrote. Bob Colarossi said, what's in this letter is false. You're not right. It's not correct, so about what was said about what he did. But when it came to me, Bella just assumed that what was written about me was accurate. And I thought, Bella, you're saying that it's false what you said in that letter. Bob's saying it's false, and I'm saying it's false. And that I would never say you're abusive. Why would I ever say that? So that's why there was this big rift because there's one individual, and so Bella thought that I was telling people he was abusive. And I'm like, oh my God, So I didn't graduate from my residency on time because I'm doing things to specifically help. When Dominique Mociano had her shin problem and Carrie Strike had a little ankle problem, and it was just Dominique, Carrie, Bella, and Marta out at the ranch. I had no more vacation time at all because I'm always gone for gymnastics. It was like a joke during my medical school and residency because they'd be like, have a little blow-up down, put it in the scene, say, that's Larry, I'm at the ranch, and now from this competition or there. Anyway, so I'm at the ranch again, with just Bella, Marta, Carrie, and Dominique getting ready for the 96 Olympic trials. And I'm like, she's got a stress fracture. Mociano, hello, we have to take care of this. And Bella and Marta, we're taking care of this. So, they trusted me to be with them, just the five of us, at the ranch. And, I had to wait a whole extra year to be able to take my boards because I didn't finish my residency on time, and that delays your boards for a whole year. So I did all of that. Why would I do that if I thought Bella was abusive? And that's what I tried to explain to Bella. So, and now it's all fine. It's, tempered, so yeah, I legit wasn't allowed to be at the ranch for like 10 months, because of that, so it was tough. It was a tough time, but, over time, because of me being me and I just stick to it. You know what I mean? When you're honest and truthful and you don't change, anyone can see the pattern over and over again. When you're deceitful and you try and do things and they see that you're not the same person, you keep switching roles, you're going back and forth, that leads people to distrust. But over the years, I mean, like Bella and Marta saw the consistency, the drive, the consistency, and the trust now is impeccable. You know what I mean? Because I didn't bow down to that. I didn't let it affect me. You know what I mean? And still kept the priorities, and kept it straight and never veered from the priorities of gymnast first. Nothing gets in the way of gymnast first. Gymnast centered, their health, physical and mental. Then comes everyone else. And that includes parents, that includes coaches, that includes the administration. Everything else is secondary to that. And that's why I'm still able to do the job that I do now, too. It's because the gymnasts that are now the coaches know what I did when they were gymnasts. And so, anyways, and you screw up once with one of those gymnasts, and it'll spread like wildfire. If you deceive one of the gymnasts, if you do something where you break their train of trust, you're done, because they'll never trust you again, and they'll tell the other gymnasts. You know what I mean? So you got to stick with the core, protect the gymnasts mentally and physically, and get them, teach them, educate them on how to share their emotions and share their trust with their coaches, parents, and administrators, but mainly their coaches and their parents. They have to be honest to themselves first. Honest to themselves before they can be honest with other people. That's what you got to teach them. And that's what happened with this letter. She was deceitful. She was deceitful to herself, deceitful to her parents, deceitful to the coaches, and deceitful to the administration because of the fact that she couldn't be honest with herself. And because of that, I suffered for almost a year. And not only me, but those around me. So in the whole, but we went back to it. So, but you just got to stick to that. You got to stick to the simple fact that the gymnast has to be honest to themselves first, and not try and lie to themselves about what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yep.
So, anyway.
Oh, this is so good to hear. And have you ever had a situation where, you've been overruled, or your recommendation has been overruled by a parent, like the coach and the gymnast maybe are saying, okay, this is where we have to get off the train. This is the end of the road. Like, I need to just take a step back. And a parent who can't be honest with themselves, a parent who's, can't see what's really going on. And how do you deal with that?
Well, there's times when parents try to use coaches as a scapegoat. I think that's what I see more of, and that irritates me to no end. Where the athlete's been injured, say, and the child hasn't been able to fully rehabilitate the injury and take care of the injury, hasn't been brought to physical therapy, hasn't been brought to a doctor, and then the child doesn't make the team because they're injured. It usually happens at trials. You know what I mean? So the athlete then says, the reason why my child is an alternate, or the reason why my child didn't make the team, is because the coach forbade her to take care of her injury. And, they'd come to me, and I've heard this from several different parents. And I look at the parent, and then there's a couple that wanted to sue the coach. And I said, You're the parent.
Yeah.
Do you want me to call Child Protective Services on you for what you're just telling me? I said, do you understand? You're the parent. If you knew your child was injured, you knew that your child needs medical help to the point that you're discussing to me right now, and you chose not to seek medical attention, then who's to blame? It's your child. You have to do what's right and good for your child. You chose not to do those things. The coach didn't choose not to do those. You chose. So don't be blaming the coach. She's your child. And you chose not to seek medical help. That's your problem, not the coach's problem. You know, so it's easy for the parents sometimes to get caught up in the situation too. And then when the card of houses fall down, they want to point fingers at other people. The bottom line is the parent needs to be a parent and needs to love their child and needs to take care of their child, and that is important. They don't need to coach their child. They don't need to know what's happening inside the gym to the point of how many reps the kid does or how many minutes the coach spends directly with their child or all this stuff and micromanaging. They need to say, how did the gym go today? How did you do it? Did you have a great day? Did you have a bad day? Tell me about your day. Hug them and love them, whether it's a good day or a bad day, and listen to them and support them. Nourish and love them. Don't coach them, and don't get caught up with the coaching of them. That is where the problem comes in when it comes into the parental situations. They need to just be the parents. Yep. Does that make sense?
Totally. We've talked about on the show before about when people put the dream of the Olympics or the dream of anything out, they put that before anything else. That is the top priority. It's before their schooling, before their health, before anything. If parents do that, if a kid does that, then everything goes bad from there. You just can't ever do that.
No, it's the part of a dynamics of being centered on nourishing a child from a parental standpoint, nourishing a child from a coaching standpoint, nourishing a child from a sports standpoint, and building and nourishing and having reciprocal nourishment. Reciprocal nourishment is where by nourishing the child, you are nourished too, not from a gain of awards and medals, but by a gain of enhanced experience of what the dynamics is of that relationship. Meaning, if I'm a parent and I nourish that child well, then I am nourished back by being a better parent. Okay? And that builds. If I'm a coach and I nourish that child well, that child does well, then I am a better coach for that. The money and medals are all side effects of appropriate reciprocal nourishment. If you focus on the money and the medals, bad things happen. That's where you cut corners. That's where you try and cheat the system, cheat the body, cheat the environment, and pay no attention to the warning signs because you're going for the gold and the medals.
I love that. I'm going to make that into a bumper sticker. I'm putting that in our t-shirt series. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, we have a segment on the show where we do gymnastics mythbusters. So we like to ask people about, things that, are gymternet legends, things that like an urban legend that we want to find out if they're really true. So we saw on your Facebook page that after Worlds, the night before finals, you know what I'm going to say, that Marta ordered pizza and let everyone eat it, including the gymnasts. Is this really true? Were you making that up?
That is true. That is totally 100% true.
That is amazing. It seems to us from the outside that the number of ACL injuries and Achilles injuries have increased over the years. Is that just a perception, or is there actually data to back that up?
1996 to 2000. Before 1996, we didn't have ACL. It was very, very rare, But when they got really compulsory, that was the first thing that changed. Was between 96 and 2000, the ACLs came about with our female athletes. Again, female athletes, not other disciplines that I'm talking about. And So yeah, and then around 99, 2000, we started to get into the transition from ACLs being a hotbed. Between 2000 and 2004 was the rise of the Achilles, is when all that started to happen, and between in that same transitioning, we started to get the shoulders, and between 2004 and 2008, we sort of saw the transitioning into more and more shoulder injuries with our gymnasts, and after 2008, whatever, when the code is just out of control. So there is no trend anymore other than it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to get hurt at the elite level at this point. It's ridiculous because they've raised the bar. No other sport in the world, as soon as you learn a skill, it's passe and you gotta adapt and enhance it. What other sport changes the rules that drastically every 4 years? If you were a football player, you'd have to have only 2 downs to get a first now, and you'd have to get 20 yards to get those first downs, and the goalposts would be only 6 inches apart to the ball flew. If they change the rules every 4 years, I mean, like what sport does this? It's crazy. And we know that, and we know that we have to try and get the FIG to reverse some of these policies, or there won't be a sport. Because you can't look down the road. Where are you going with this? So we change the equipment so much, and that's the equipment can get better. Yeah, the padding, the matting, the safeties that we can do, but we're already at the limit of what the human body structurally can sustain if you're mechanically off and you can't break things. It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. I think that's. I mean, when you were saying that, I'm thinking of what. When I worked when I was an intern at the X Games, and I, was driving someone to one of the Moto X guys to the hospital for surgery after he, fell off the side of one of the jumps. And, he was saying that the problem with the course, it wasn't even the problem with the what they were doing. It was the course is totally unforgiving. So you couldn't even be a tiny bit off and you would be literally broken. And when I heard you say that, I flashed back to that memory, and I think of doing your triple twisting your Chenko or a 2.5. Like, if you're a little bit off, unless you're Allie Raisman, who apparently has like a 500 extra ligaments in her knees and is like the strongest human on earth, the human body can't sustain that amount of power and torque. Like, you can't be off. It's totally unforgiving skill.
Exactly. You can't be off. When you're off, that's when the forces, it just become multifactorial higher, It's not just a little bit higher. It's like doubling, tripling higher when you're off. It's just amazing. So that's the issue. So, so that's something that they're going to have to deal with. And we'll see. I think eventually that they're really going to have to start to reorganize the way that we look at the sport so that we don't have to keep changing it so much and put back some of the artistry and, I could see them, maybe not the Olympics, having to do compulsories, but it wouldn't be bad to put back compulsories. Some way of making them have to work the basics more. So they don't spend as much time pounding on the button. Look at the guys. The guys spend most of their time doing mental routines. They cannot do the hours of skills that the girls do. It's impossible. Their bodies would break. They know that. So they spend much more doing mental routines. So.
Yeah, I was just looking. Somebody at Michigan was on the show and was telling us their workouts are 3 hours a day. And I was like, what? You have Sam Kulik there, and you won NCAAs, and half the U.S. teams coming from there. How's it possible you only work out 3 hours a day? And I was like, oh, they must work out really, really, really smart, and it's not just numbers. Totally different mindset. Mm-hmm.
It's got to do the mental routines, for them, because they know. 4 events are all upper extremity, 4 events are their shoulders. Sign them up for putting Velcro into their shoulders because they're having number shoulder surgeries. Why put poke holes? So I mean, it's incredible. So that's why. And we're getting better. They're being smarter about their training, and it's showing in how we're doing internationally with our men's team. The men's team is awesome. They're really up and coming. They've become much more intense with their training and better with their training and smarter with the training to the point that now, look out, they're contenders. They're legit. They are a legit team that is recognized now and made a statement well enough, consistently enough, that not only are we world challengers, but we're getting better. So that's great. I give them tons of credit.
So I want to ask you one more question about, or a couple,
Sure.
I think there's some myths about, ACL injuries. And are there, things that you come across where you think people believe this and this is a total myth about ACL injuries?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of debate and literature. There's some studies that say because you're a female and you menstruate, and so there's a hormone. There's like receptors on the ligament that are based upon your cycles that create you to tear your ACL. There's that thought processes. So there's all these little issues, that pop up here and there, and the bottom line is it's biomechanical, and your alignment of your knees and the angles within your knees and the shape of the bones within your knees, things called notches, and the way the femur is shaped and the way the ACL bends around it's the biomechanics of your body and the efficiency upon which you're able to do those biomechanics that predisposes you to injury. So some of it is because a female has wider hips because their pelvis has to widen at the appropriate times as they go through puberty so that they can have babies. You can tell a male skeleton from a female skeleton based upon their pelvis, for example. Because the gynecoid, it changes so the baby's head can fit through the pelvis, okay? So as that happens, as it widens, then the angle down towards the knees can change and puts more backward stress to the knees, and therefore women have a greater propensity because of these angles for ACL tears than men. It's not because they're women and she's a girl, it's because biomechanically there's structural predispositions for it because of the shape of the typical female body. And some have increased mechanics that favor tearing than others, just like some male athletes do. And that's why some male athletes may tear their ACL 3-4 times, and another athlete can suffer greater challenges to their body and never tear their ACL, like you said, and like an Allie Reisman.
And what about, I'm wondering about the allograft versus autograft. Peng Li, one of the great Canadians, tore her ACL, and then recently she took like a year and a half off to come back, and then they found out, she's having problems, and it turned out that the allograft, so for our listeners, this is when you use a cadaver's ligament as opposed to your own, from your own body, taking a piece of tendon and making it into a ligament from your own body. It failed, so it disintegrated. I mean, it wasn't even there, I guess, when they did the MRI. There's an outcry from, including me. I was like, why would you ever do an allograft when, if it fails, you could potentially come back faster, but if the allograft fails, then you have like double the time of recovery. Like, why would anyone do this? Like, what are your thoughts on this? And is my outrage completely, completely wrong? What do you think?
No, my opinion is poop happens, and it does. And so what I always tell the gymnasts is my preference, if I had a preference, it would be a hamstring graft, because I don't want to take anything from the knee that may affect or give them patella tendonitis if they take a patella tendon graft. But the doctor has to know how to quadruple that hamstring and make it a stronger graft. But so the key is that you go to a surgeon that has great success with athletes, with ACLs. They do them every day that they're in surgery. That's their go-to, thing is, ACLs. And they have a great success rate. And you never have a surgeon that has a great success rate doing it one way and ask them to do it a different way. Okay? So if this surgeon is great at allografts, then I'm doing allografts. If that surgeon's great at doing patella tendons, have him do patella tendons. If this surgeon's great at hamstrings, have him do hamstrings. So So the bottom line is, don't talk to me about statistics nationally or whatever. What's the success of that individual person, that surgeon? He's the one doing the surgery. I mean, she is. If that female surgeon or male surgeon is capable of having great outcomes, that's the surgery I want. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
So it's an individual case. And like I said, if she would have had a difference, who knows? I mean, was it because there was a poor graft? Was it, some type of defect or what?
Right.
There's always that very small percentage, and you never want to be that very small percentage that has a failure. The poop happens. It sucks when it happens. That's for sure.
So 2 more little ACL myth-buster questions. When Shawn Johnson hurt her knee skiing, a lot of people were quick to blame her vault landings. Oh, it's, because of her vault landings, and, her ACL was already weakened, and so that's why instantly it tore. Is it true that there's, sprains bleeding?
No, because she was dancing with the fire, she wasn't skiing, and she did something. I mean, hello, no, her doing gymnastics had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that she was skiing. Her ski got caught or whatever. It had nothing to do with her gymnastics. Heck, no, not even close. Skiers have a huge number of ACL tears. You know what I mean? Her gymnastics had nothing to do with that. Something predisposive. No, not at all. That's a crazy one. Well,
this is why we do Mythbusters, so we can get to the bottom of these things. So the other one is, they've just discovered this 4th cruciate ligament.
Wait a second. Wait. There's another issue here.
Oh, tell us.
I'm having a hard time here. I'm thinking. I gotta think about this. Yeah, I don't think Shawn Johnson tore her ACL. She tore her meniscus. I don't think there was an ACL issue there. I think her ACL was fine. So, to go beyond that, she didn't tear her ACL. She was skiing. She didn't tore her meniscus, for God's sake. Okay, so wake up. Whoever came up with that myth really was smoking something, because, her ACL's fine. So it was just a meniscus tear.
Oh, there you go. Another myth busted. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. It took me a second. I was like, what are you talking about? But I think, go ahead. If I'm getting old, so and my memory banks aren't that good. But yeah, no, it was just a myth.
Oh, okay. So there's this 4th cruciate ligament that has been discovered, and it seems like some people have it and some people don't.
Oh my goodness gracious! Now, okay, there is no 4th bundle. They've been talking about this thing for decades.
Right.
You could go back literally for decades, and they've been talking about this little homolog PC thingy of the ACL. So that's not new. It's just getting some more press. So that's been around for decades. Yeah. No, so that's bust that's right now. So there's researchers, they pull back some old stuff, and but no, that's been around for decades.
Another myth busted. Love it.
Yeah, it's been around for decades. Yeah.
Have you ever come across anybody that has it?
It doesn't matter. I wouldn't know if I had. so let's put it this way. No one on the national team, or no one in my medical career, or no one that I've dealt with has had an issue with that situation with the ACL. So it's research based. It's not practically applied at this point, and it's not a standard. It's not involved with the standard of care of the athlete at this point. How does that sound? It's research based. It's there's ways to go. So on that one. So the future will tell us what that little thingy has to do with the total function of the ACL. We'll find out.
Something
that's the rest of the story. There you go.
Another question is about Toradol. So this is something for our listeners that's commonly used in the NFL. There are claims that it has been used by NCAA teams during regular season. There's others claim no one would ever use that until it's like the day of NCAA finals for a senior. And what Toradol is, why it's in the news, is because it can mask the pain and cause internal bleeding. So if someone could have internal bleeding, concussion, or an internal organ and not know it, so that was what makes it really dangerous. What are your thoughts on the use of this in gymnastics, if it's ever used?
You can always look at my thoughts in 1991 in Technique, which is a gymnastics journal, because it's published there in 1991 about the use of Toradol, and the research that we did and the study that we did with the use of it in gymnasts. So it's been fully published in 1991 with the gymnasts, and we know that based upon that is that if you give a gymnast ingest Toradol, it's just a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. It's just a lousy anti-inflammatory. But it's the same as Advil. It's like a liquid Advil. It's like a liquid Advil. It's just got a good pain relieving effect. It's used post-operative for pain. It's used for kidney stones, and it's used quite commonly, at half-times or pre-games if someone needs a little extra pain boost. But we know that if you give someone Toradol for too many days in a row, we stopped using it so much. Not because of all the other stuff too. It's mainly because too much Toradol for more than like 3 to 5 days can blow up your kidneys, can really affect kidney function. So that's why Toradol doesn't get used very much. It gives it this mystique, because it's a good painkiller. It's a non-narcotic painkiller, so it doesn't give you the narcotic effects like a Vicodin, a Norco would. Okay, so it's just a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, same as Advil. But it can be given injectable, and what we know is that it can, if you have a scale of 1 to 10, and a gymnast at a scale of 9 or 10 was like, take me to the hospital because I'm dying here, versus like a 6 or a 5, which said, this hurts enough to affect my performance, to a 3 where, a 3 or 4 which says it hurts enough but it won't affect my performance. What Toradol will do in general is, if given 20 to 30 minutes before they start their warm-up, it has to be done before they start to warm up for the medicine to actually get into their body and actually become effective. And it will only last maybe 4 hours to be effective. During that time, the pain will go down from the pain is at a level that will affect my performance to the pain's going to go down to a level that it should not affect my performance. But the bottom line is they all still feel the pain. Never given a Toradol injection, and it gives them no pain. They all still feel the pain. And that's what the data, showed that I published back in 1991, is that it would take their pain level to a point. And the reason why I did it was because in 1988, at Olympic trials, the orthopedic surgeon there did nerve blocks. And 2 of the athletes, 1 male, 1 female, had to withdraw from Olympic trials in 1988 because too much medicine was given, and they to block the nerve, and they couldn't feel their foot on the ground. They legit couldn't even feel their body part touch the ground, so they had to withdraw. And so at that point, after I saw that, I swore I would never, ever, ever take away someone's pain to the point that they couldn't feel the pain. Or do nerve blocks. We never do that. Never do that. So we use Toradol, but not much. Not much.
Gymnastics fans are so fiercely protective of the gymnasts that they love. They always want to know, like, how could this injury be prevented, or who's responsible for this injury? What could have been done?
Who's to blame?
Exactly. Who's to blame for this? Like, that's my favorite gymnast. What? And so I've always wanted to ask you kind of, if you could do one thing, like implement one program, or make every single gym in the whole world do one thing to make gymnastics safer, or to prevent more injuries. Just like one, if you could wave a magic wand and everyone would start doing this one thing, what would it be?
You're not going to believe this. You know what it would be?
What?
It'd bring back compulsories.
I love that.
I'm sure that wasn't the answer you were expecting,
no.
But that's the answer I'm going to give you. It's bring back compulsories. When our injury rate started to go up was between 1996 and 2000. And it's because of the simple fact that, back then I'm thinking, okay, if they get rid of compulsories, I was not a fan of them getting rid of it to begin with, because compulsories was the basics. Compulsory was working the details of the basics: toe, point, hand alignment, split levels, flexibility, it was all basics, and but because figure skating, the Olympics before, got rid of their figures because of the simple fact that it was no money, because no one wanted to come watch the figures. Okay? So since no one wanted to watch the figures, no one wanted to watch our compulsories, they said, all right, we're getting rid of the compulsories because there's no money in it. So I said, okay, let's see what happens. We're training, 28 hours a week or what have you, but we're doing 8 routines. Now, 12 of those 28 hours generally was compulsory to do those 4 routines. Okay? So now if we are going to only do, the 4 optional routines, well, that's great, because now then the kids don't have to be in the gym as long. Now they only have to be in the gym, say 18 hours or 16 hours in the gym. Because now they only have 4 routines. They're all optional, so they're harder routines on their bodies, right? So what happens? Nope, not a single coach, in a sense. I'm sure there was coaches that did it properly, but the vast majority of coaches, and the way that the trend obviously went was, here we're going from 8 routines to only 4. We're getting rid of the 4 routines that are less stressful to the body and actually force the people to work detail and attention and basics, and we're going to keep the same number of hours. So now we're doing twice as many hours in a sense, not twice as many, but probably a good, 1/3 as many, added on. So from like I said, now we're adding an additional 12 hours that we just would have got rid of for those optional, harder landing, more difficult skills on their bodies. Okay, so all we did was increase the amount of stress to the body and decrease the amount that we actually worked the basics. And voila, we have a recipe for disasters. And that's when all the injuries really started to come up, But that's what I think. That's the answer to your question. Bring back compulsories, or in a way, force the gyms to decrease their use of optional trainings and increase their use of basic training.
Wow. I totally didn't expect that answer, and I totally agree. I think that's... I kind of loved watching compulsories because you could really differentiate who had the basics down. And I think they were beautiful. Elite compulsories were beautiful, like 92. Oh, I could watch those over and over again. So we've talked previously on the show about ballet and how ballet can actually help protect the joints. And I know you've kind of talked about that, the importance of turnout, of hip turnout. And can you just tell people why ballet kind of can help prevent injuries? It's not just something that makes gymnasts pretty, but is actually useful.
So it's very useful because the artistry that's involved in ballet, and because it's compulsory. It's because it has to do with form and function or alignment. Using proper technique. It's all about proper technique. So yeah, ballet is hugely important because we don't have compulsories. We need to get back to basics. We need to get back at where does your knee line up with your first and second toe? How does your hip, knee, and toe align? And proper presentation for alignment and posture so that the forces are generated efficiently and fluently through your body in a decreased mechanical way of stress and an increased mechanical way of efficiency. That's what the hundreds and hundreds of years of ballet, you could say, has transformed into proper trying to get that mechanical alignment of beauty and grace. And that's what we're talking about. Can we get that beauty? Can we transcend that beauty from dance into gymnastics? Do you know who Lydia Prokopyeva is?
Yes.
All right. What is she known for? What was she known for?
Power and extreme grace.
Right, extreme grace. And what did she accomplish that no other gymnast has accomplished since her?
Won Worlds and then won the Olympics right after it.
1995, all-around world champion. 1996, all-around Olympic champion. No one's done it since. What did they drop since then? Compulsories. What was she known for? Her beauty and grace. What made her a double champion? Compulsories. because of her ability, like you said, full of grace. Okay? Full of grace. So that was, that's what changed, Svetlana Boginskaya, was when she went to her beauty and grace. They tried to bring that dance into it. So that's what Svetlana was known for, too. But that was 91, 92. But she wasn't back to back. She wasn't able to do that. But Prokopyeva was in 95 and 96. And so yeah, there's Prokopyeva right there. I'll tell you, beauty and grace will win.
I love that. She's just one of my all-time favorites. Okay.
There you go.
She is. When I was at Worlds, I've been to 2 Worlds, and when I was, the thing that's driven me nuts both times being at Worlds is seeing someone injured, and 2 times I've seen someone injured where it's a head-first injury, and the coaches, and it seems to me the coaches are embarrassed, and they just pick the gymnast up and carry them off the podium without immobilizing the neck, without checking for a neck injury, and even with ankle or leg injuries, just picking them up, not, with no assessment. Just, you're injured, move you as fast as you can. And I was like, oh my God, it makes me crazy watching that. Crazy. Do you think there should be some kind of, again, we're going back to the fans wanting, never, try to prevent things, don't make it worse, than it already is. Do you think there should be some kind of FIG medical staff that has, a standard procedure? We don't move someone until there's a injury assessment? That's so basic.
Well, we do that in the States, what I mean, as far as the national team before there, they know that it doesn't matter how much time it takes. We take care of the athlete first. And FIG has a lot of problems when it comes to medical that's a hard one to comment on because there's so many. That's like a whole another hour conversation with the FIG and medical. So, there's a lot of issues that the FIG could do from a medical standpoint that I wish they would. But it ain't going to happen with the person in charge as it is right now. There's a lot. And there's a lot of doctors, trainers from all over the world that would love to see changes happen and have tried and tried and tried. And, we're it's difficult. And eventually things will change. And it's structured just like the code of points and everything. There's some old guard that needs to just change. And then things will change. But, they got to, again, what we talked about before is the athlete comes first and TV comes second and everything else comes second. When that athlete is hurt, time is frozen and it's irrelevant how long it takes to take care of that person as long as you do it efficiently, effectively, and safely for the athlete. Getting them up and moving them because you're embarrassed or whatever, what the hell's that? Anyway.
Oh my God, it drives me nuts. I wanted to run jump over the side and be like, don't touch her! You have not assessed the injury yet!
But see, part of the issue is the coaches also, sometimes people understand that the coach knows the athlete and has probably seen them take that fall, maybe 5-6 times before in warm-ups. So the coach may have seen that fall by that athlete over and over again and knows that athlete's personality and knows the way the athlete is when they're hurt and knows the way the athlete is when they're not hurt and knows how some athletes might be more drama than others. And so we as outsiders from that relationship, it's hard to pass that judgment because you don't know, is the coach being reckless or is the coach understanding that that's a normal process for that athlete. They've done it a million times before, that exact same skill, landing that exact same way, and they're fine. So it's hard. It's very, 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 very hard unless we have data that shows that coach and that has actually moved truly injured, come out to find later, truly injured athletes. Because it's hard. It's not an easy thing to be a bystander and make those judgment calls. Without knowing the psyche of the athlete and without knowing the history of how that athlete has done with that skill in the past. Not to be protective, but to look at the big picture.
Yep, that's very true. That's very true. A lesson everyone in the Gymternet, including me, could, learn from right there. Thank you so much for spending all this time.
It's a pleasure talking to you. Yeah, hopefully.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. I hope it doesn't get me in trouble, and I hope it was okay. All right.
Thank you for everything you do for all of the gymnasts we love.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You have a great night.
All right, you too.
Bye. Bye-bye now.
This episode is brought to you by Elite Sports Band. EliteSportsBand.com. We've got your back.
Visit EliteSportsBand.com, that's sports with a Z, and save $5 on your next purchase with the code GYMCAST. We have a very special guest next week, an NCAA judge who has been judging for a very long time. And so I want to know from you guys, what have you always wanted to ask an NCAA judge? Keep it clean. Try to control yourselves a little bit, but let me know what you want to know. What do you want to know about the rules? What do you want to know about the changes? And we're also going to have Jill Hicks on. She has some data to share with us about early recruiting. She has polled some coaches about early recruiting. So I'd like to know if you guys have any questions about recruiting. What if there's changes you want to see, if there's things you want to know about what coaches like to see, let me know, and I will ask those questions. Blythe will ask those questions next week. In addition, we have some very special guests calling in from Glasgow, from the Glasgow World Cup. One of them has been on before, and you guys enjoyed it very much, so look forward to that. Send us your NCAA questions at gymcastic@gmail.com, or tweet us at gymcastic, or of course go to our Facebook page. And remember to watch Maroney on Bones, then get up the next morning and draft your fantasy team. If you love the show, please give us the holiday gift of reviewing us or recommending us to a friend. We would absolutely love that. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.